Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, beautiful people of the internet, and welcome back to the second episode of my new conversation series, Inside the Life of. It's a series where I'm looking to have long-form conversations with people in the sport, around the sport, everything in between, and dive deeper than just what their max snatch is or what sanctionals they're attending this year, and really focus on the things that make them who they are. Today I had the opportunity to sit down with Cole Sager. Cole and I have gotten in slight contact over the year, but haven't really got to know each other too well. So this was a cool opportunity to ask some questions that I've had and learn a little bit more about him. We talked on a lot of really cool topics, everything from his faith to his views on building a brand and using his platform, why he's just such a nice, kind, caring human being, and lots more. We dive really deep into a lot of cool things, so I think you guys are really going to enjoy this one. So sit back, relax, and without further ado, let's get into an episode of Inside the Life of with Cole Sager. My name is Nate, and I have a creative void that I'm looking to fill. And this is how I plan to do it.
Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus.
You guys might have seen him on our vlog. His name is Nate Edwardson.
Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. I've been on the flex since flex on. Neighborhood all in your eardrums. I ain't never scared like Bone Crush. Boy, I got God, don't fear none. My line busy, take no calls. Feels like
no, but just kind of kept tabs on.
Yeah. It was I don't know. I didn't watch any either, but those movements, man, in the last workout, what is going on in the CrossFit sanctional world right now? Like, saw people jumping. Like, I just saw the morning chalk up highlight thing, but it was like people jumping with dumbbells, and I was just like, I don't know, man. I don't know what's going. I feel like it's just gonna be a constant like one-upping procedure.
Yeah, honestly, circus acts. When it comes to fitness,
right?
Practice fitness. If you need to increase the weight, do that. That's fine.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. Don't turn this into a circus show for crying out loud.
I know, man. It's one of those things too where it's like it's not just like adding a new weight that you haven't used or like doing more reps. It's like literally an entire new movement that no one has practiced, which is like kind of fine when it comes to like real life stuff, like an obstacle course. But it's like the thing, it's like the things you see in CrossFit fail videos, like some of them,
exactly.
The flying push-ups and the dumbbell jump onto a thing between your leg squats. Like that's just asking to roll an ankle or something.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's like I don't want to be on the fail compilation. I'm sorry, like I'm saying.
Yeah, man. No, that's.
There's been very few and far between movements that have been introduced to CrossFit since the start of CrossFit. And I think one of the ones that has stood out recently is the devil's press.
Yeah.
That's showed up quite a bit in competition lately. And honestly, it is a great movement.
Yeah.
It's a great training movement. But like, I'm sorry, everyone. Those don't come very often. Leave it at that. You know what I mean? It's just like, leave it alone.
Totally. And yeah, like that's just a perfect example because it's a devastating movement. But it's like, really, it's a combination of dumbbell movements that have been happening for a while anyways. You know what I mean? It's not like you're introducing something completely new, like jumping onto a plank with two dumbbells on your shoulder. Like that is like that's never been a thing. You know, so it's interesting. But
I'm with you 100%.
Yeah. So anyway, man, we'll jump right into it. I think I kind of briefly mentioned it to you a little bit, but the idea behind this show is to chat with you guys as athletes about things out, even though we started on a sanctional, outside of things of just the sanctionals you're going to this year, what your max lifts are, like kind of dive into the life you lead because of the sport, but also how you're using the sport to live the life you want to live and impact people and stuff like that. So that's a thesis, and we're gonna go down that road. So the first thing I kind of wanted to jump in on is just basically your faith. Like that is a very big part, I believe, of who Cole Sager is. In the public eye, but also I know probably personally to you. And I just kind of wanted to give you an opportunity to just kind of chat a little bit about that, about kind of the journey, like how did it begin? How did you find God? How did you kind of like start that path?
Yeah. So I grew up in a small town. I've told that story quite a bit on most podcasts and things. Just talking about growing up in a small town and the struggles of that, and also the glories of that. Like, don't get me wrong, I love growing up in a small town. But with that, and growing up in a small town, you get a bit of the small town mindset,
right?
Where it's very cyclical. Like if you go into a small town and you'll see generation to generation a lot of the same things, a lot of the same habits and routines and just mindsets, I guess, if you will. And not saying that that's necessarily bad, because there's some great mindsets that are in small towns. Like, there's some beautiful things and that I absolutely love that have helped shape me because I grew up in a small town area. But I think one of those things that gets overlooked a lot in a small town is when you're in a small town and you feel like you're almost stuck there. There's this weird gravitational pull back to your small town, and I saw it a lot with a lot of friends or older students who were maybe a few grades above me and whatnot. They would go off and they'd play sports, and somehow they'd end up back in the valley, and there was just like this constant gravitational pull to come back home.
Right.
And that's again, like I said, like that's totally fine.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's not a bad thing. That's not what I'm saying. But if you get into this mindset that you're stuck there, that can be poisonous, and that can be something that is really damaging. And when talking about my faith and where that bloomed from, where that came from, a lot of it. The reason why I bring up the small town mindset is it goes back to my parents more than anything. They weren't necessarily people who pushed religion or pushed faith or pushed anything like that. And I think that's one thing I think is very important to clarify, is there's a difference between religion and having faith. I'm not a very religious person. Like, you would not and that's something that I really want to express myself as I grow as a man, is I'm not about a religious movement, about routine and rituals and things like that. Faith is about having a relationship, and that's really where it boils down for me. And having the example of my parents was something that was beautiful, because there's two different contrasts with my parents, and we all have our struggles, and we all go through difficult things and times in life. And my dad's sake, his parents went through a divorce when he was 9 years old, and that's kind of a tough age when you're that 9-10 years old.
Yeah, I was 11, I think, when mine happened.
Yeah. You understand the world enough. Mm-hmm. That's whoa, what the heck, guys? That's tough. And I'm fortunate enough to have my parents still be together, so I can't ever speak to that type of pain, other than just seeing it and with friends and stuff. But so seeing my dad go through that, but he was also raised in a more religious movement, more of a this is how you live because XYZ kind of idea. And then my mom on the other end of the spectrum was raised into a family of commercial fishermen, and that is a rough-nosed crowd. That is a tough group of people, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
And they're just grungy, and oh man. So when you talk about the sailor's mouth, they all have it. So,
can imagine.
Yeah. But anyway, so kind of looping that all back in with her growing up in a commercial fishing family. She started fishing, I think she was maybe 14, 15 years old. So exposed to that 14, 15 years old. And I mean, it's just but at the same time, nobody knew any different. That's the way life was, right? Small town, cyclical. It's just how things were. And so that, my mom's been so generous with us as when we were growing up, that she was so willing to tell us these stories at a young age, that we were just exposed to the realities of life and where things could be and what she wanted us to actually experience in life, and to have a better life than she had. Anyways, where my faith growing up as a child, it was having their example and them being completely honest and forthright with their stories, and then saying, look, we didn't find it by having somebody push it upon us. So they took us to church when we were young, and then just out of that's what they were doing. So yeah, we're going to bring our children to church. But around maybe 11 years old, 12 years old, they were look, if you don't want to go to church, you don't have to. You're old enough to start making your decisions. We're going to respect you with that. You make your decision if you want to, and right around that age, was such a beautiful timing, because right around that same age, I started to see a lot of my friends go down some pretty nasty past. And I don't know if it's a small town thing. I don't know if it's just the day and age that we're growing up in. But they were starting to get exposed to things at a pretty young age, 11, 12 years old, that I would expect maybe high schoolers to get exposed to. Like deep levels of pornography, alcohol, marijuana, like drugs that like you shouldn't be exposed to. And I don't know, again, like, is it a small town thing? I don't know. Or, like day and age. So, for some reason though, in seeing all of that, seeing my friends get into sexually active relationships at such a young age and having these twisted mindsets and things just moved around, it's like, this doesn't feel right. All throughout that, I was just kind of felt like I was kept from, like, I was there, I was in the middle, like, I was with my friends for the most part, like, I was watching and I could see it firsthand, but I was, like, held back from partaking, and I, like, there was just like this resistance, and I don't know what it is, but that's one of those things. It's like I can't explain that. Like, how is, like, where in my life, like, that's not human. Mm-hmm. And I guess, and then as, like, throughout that time, as I was like 12 years old, so 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 years, old, all that kind of was just like that kept happening. And my faith was forming, but I didn't really know what was going on. And in high school, I think things really started to solidify in me. And, I always believed, I always knew that God was there for the most part, but I didn't really, like, have that foundational relationship and, like, really, like, I want to get to know him. He was more like my, like that magic genie concept,
Sure.
It's like, prosperity gospel, like, hey, God, like, I'm gonna rub my little
I need this right now.
Like, hey, there's a big game this weekend.
Yeah.
Just wanted to pray, let you know that I'm going to be, I could use a really good game. There's going to be skeptic, and I was in high school when I started to realize, like, oh wow, like, this is about having a relationship and about building myself up also, mm-hmm. so that I can live outwardly and serve other people, and that the Christian faith is not about getting, but it's about giving.
Sure.
And that was something that when I had that epiphany of like, so much was given for me, why wouldn't I want to live this way? Like, that's the beauty of it, and that's really why, like, the Christian faith is something that I just love so much, because it's like this was given and I was shown so much grace. Like, I'm inspired to live a certain way. Not, I want a certain thing in life, so I'm going to live this way. It was like, I'm already been given this grace. I've already been given this love and so I'm going to live this out, and I'm going to in turn serve the rest of the people in my life, and develop myself to the best of my ability, like, develop my character, develop my physical prowess, develop all my gifts and my talents, so that I can make the world a better place, so I can serve people and I can love openly and outwardly, and and I'm one of the last people to thump you over the head with the Bible. I'm not really a big fan of that. I think it's important to be equipped, so I spend a lot of time in the Bible, because I think there's a lot of wisdom and there's a lot of instruction in there, but I'm not gonna, like, man, I would rather give you a hug than give you a proverb.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like, and it's like, people are they're gonna see more of Christ in the way that I live than they're gonna see me shouting on top of a rooftop about my faith and stuff. Like, mm-hmm. That's just not me. So that's kind of me in a nutshell, man.
Yeah, no, it's cool. It's cool to hear, because, to give a little context, like, growing up, I was in a fairly religious household. Like, my mom's parents were, like, Baptist, so, like, pretty strict, and then, like, both my parents were, like, go to church every Sunday. I went to Sunday school, and, like, that whole kind of opposite to you, I guess, being really forced into the routine and stuff like that, led me to a point at, like, 17 or 18 where I started to realize that there was more out there. There's more belief systems. There's, conflicting things. And I was, like I said, I was raised very closed-mindedly, I think, like, not having the ability to think for myself. And so I reached this point where I was like, I want to think for myself. And so it's cool hearing how you position it as more of a faith than a religion, because it's, like, more open. to move on that, a lot of CrossFitters, not a lot, but like a good amount, are pretty faith-based, right? I think that's kind of fair to say. And yourself included will use their platforms to put that message out. Why do you choose to do that? Why? I know the obvious answer is because it's kind of like part of what the Bible would say, but like what really is your, I guess, like intention? What are you hoping to achieve by being so open with your faith on your platform?
Yeah, so it's super interesting because I've gotten some interesting questions like that before, and it's I guess maybe one of the places I'm at in my career and just like as a person and in life is I've had so many people preach to me about building a brand. And it's like, Cole, look, you're an athlete, you need to build your brand, you need to self yourself up, build a business, all this stuff, all this nonsense, if you will. And it's like, whoa, I'm a human being. Like my account is awesome, and I got in the sport to build a platform, and we'll talk about that in a second. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, like, I am Cole Sager behind my Instagram account, behind my YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. And if my faith is truly the relationship that I claim it to be, and it is something that is as vital and important to my existence as I believe it to be, then it's not so much about sharing a message or, putting out a specific message as much as just sharing who I am. Mm-hmm. And that comes down to the, people telling me to like build a brand and you need to be careful about what you say. When I was like, actually, I'm just going to share who I am, and I'm going to change the world by living that way.
Right. That's, if you don't mind, I want to interject for a sec. That's interesting because are you saying that you should share your faith less because it's going to hinder your ability to build brand?
I've had that, yeah.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I can kind of see it on the marketing side because you might be closing off a small portion of the audience, but like the whole thing about building brand, at least, Danny and I talked about this, and I know we will too when we get to it, but like if you're going to build a brand that's going to last past just your athletic career, it has to be people tying on to you as a person and being open and receptive to what you're putting out and who you are. And if you're building a brand that isn't true to yourself, once that part of you that's not the whole you, aka your competition career, is over, your brand's going to be a lot less interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it totally is. It totally is. And I think that comes down to like essentially what I was referring to is like I'm not necessarily a brand. I'm a person.
Exactly.
And it's like I would rather go a mile deep with someone than cast a mile wide net. It's like that's. I want to have a resounding impact on life. Yeah. Not this cute. I don't want to be an influencer. Yeah. I don't want to influence. I want to impact.
Right. No, it's cool you say that because like this whole world is like super new to me, and like having people that and it's so small scale on my end, but like it started and like there's people who I don't know who will reach out to me and say things, and like the thing I found is like it's so cool. I was saying this literally to Ree 2 days ago, my girlfriend, that like the ability to have people who genuinely just want to like have a conversation and get to know you that you don't know and you can connect with, and you can create this net. And like those are the people that are actually interested in you. They're not interested in the sport. The people who are interested in the sport will message you like, hey, what's your max match? Hey, what'd you get on this workout? But like the people who send you like genuine messages like, hey, I really appreciate what you're doing, I love the content you're putting out, and then you can actually like dive in and like get like, it's crazy. You know what I mean? That opportunity is nuts.
100%, and those are my favorite messages, man. Yeah. It's like when I get those on Instagram, it's like, oh, this is so cool. Or people send me some emails every once in a while from the website, and it's like, oh man, this is why I do this. Yeah. This is why I got into the sport.
Yeah, well, and I mean, it's definitely not achievable for you because your fan base is so large. But like for me, it's like anytime I get one of those, I'm like, I want to just like hop on a FaceTime with them, and be like, hey, like let's actually chat, let's actually get to know. Like this is so cool. Like you seem awesome. Like
totally.
You know what I mean?
That's actually something that frustrates me. I'm also like, I wish I could talk to all of you all the time.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is like right now for me, I'm like, if anyone's listening to this and actually wants to talk to me, DM me. I don't have really fans. Like if you actually want to talk to me, if you're one of the 12, then like I'll talk to you. Like you don't have to. Like I don't have a big enough following yet for it to matter. So
yeah, man. I love that.
Yeah, it's a weird world. It's funny. You're one of the nicest humans on earth, I think. Like I've gotten to know you a little bit over the last year, and we've had conversations, and like you're definitely one of the nicest people I know, and I think that's a pretty like resounding statement in the CrossFit world. And that's not to butter you up, that's just like genuine. But like, why is that? And if the answer is your faith, which it might be, what aspects of it lead you to literally like, not like, I'm not talking like you're nice and you're trying to push your faith on people. Like, you're literally just nice, very nice. Why is that? How do I be nice?
Yeah. So I mean, like, thank you. I mean, I do appreciate that a lot, you know. But I think a lot of it does stem from my faith, you know, and just gaining an understanding that I've been given a lot of great gifts, especially in the physical prowess realm, and then you can talk about all of the other aspects of like, I've been told enough in my life that I'm a good looking guy, that I understand that I'm a good looking guy. Like, I don't mean to be arrogant.
No.
I've just been told that enough. It's like, you know, so, and, I don't know. It's like, I am so thankful for that. And I think in just developing my relationship and my faith, and it goes back to the grace aspect of things. You know, and you don't even have to have faith to understand what I'm talking about. Like, you don't need to be a Christian. You don't need to have a religious faith. Like, you don't have anything to understand what I'm talking about right now. Just being shown grace, because all of us have been shown grace at some point in time where you don't understand why things align the way they do. You don't understand why people treated you the way they treated you. But it felt really good, and it helped you, and it made your life easier in a sense, or better in a sense. And I guess what I just realized, like, when you're shown a lot of grace, like, it's your responsibility to give a lot of grace. And in turn, like, live life with an open, spread hand. And that's been a resounding message that I've really, really attached to in my faith walk, and, you know, my walk of faith, and seeing that living with an open hand of giving and sacrificing things for the benefit of other people. And there's a a quote that me and my wife talk about on a fairly regular basis, just remind each other of. But we want to be people who live our lives in a manner to protect the weakest among us, to not just look out for ourselves, but understand that we've been given so much, so we should in turn like use that to help people. You know, knowing that good is going to come. That's like, if you ever read the Bible, that's all throughout the Bible. People look at the Bible from the standpoint of like this negativity and like this condemnation side of things, but it's a gospel of hope. Like it's a book of hope. Like, that's the whole thing. And so like if you spend any time in there, like all of a sudden your life starts to just open up to like, wow, there's a lot of hope in the world. And again, like, you don't have to be a Christian to understand what I'm talking about. Like, there's hope out there. There's good in the world. There's good out there. And I just so badly want to be an extension of that.
Right.
Just want to be a light in the world, because I've seen a lot of dark, and that started off when I was talking about like hearing the stories from my mom, and then seeing firsthand my friends fall into, you know, some life circumstances that I would never wish upon anybody. You know, and it's like, I have seen darkness and I have been kept from it. I have been shown light. So, you know what? Like, no, I'm going to live my life in a way that only exposes more light. Because, what was it, Martin Luther King? Like darkness does not drive out darkness, only light can do that. You know, hatred does not drive out hateness, only love can do that, right? Like, I believe that. I believe that, you know? So, I don't know. I guess it's just when you have a deep conviction of it, it makes it real. It makes it so real. And it's not, it's just easier to live out, you know?
And it's interesting to see, because like, you know, a lot of the time the trend with people who gain these platforms and build this influence and whatever is they become sort of recluse, and they kind of like will hide a lot of themselves, and they kind of become short with people, and they maybe feel a little holier than thou, like they have this advantage over everyone. But like, it's very interesting to see, because like, it seems like you just genuinely want to like flip that on its head and use that platform to be more of yourself, and to put out that message of like love, basically, like more than anything else. And that's, it's cool to see. And it's, you know, again, it's something I I kind of resound with as well. Like I love the idea of like potentially, like my brand, you could call it, is really centered around like helping people like realize that they can do whatever they want in life, and they don't have to follow the classic like high school, university, 9 to 5, stuck in a job you don't love. Like the world is full of opportunity. You can do whatever you want. And like, we all have these things that we're really passionate about sharing, and it's cool to think that you can do that. And it's much more positive to use it to do something like that than just to like sell t-shirts. You know what I mean? Or whatever it is, whatever you're trying to convert them. So cool.
Yeah, and I understand that there's, from a, financial standpoint, like there's certain ways that you want to live, and there's plans and systems that behoove you to put into place before you start doing something. And know that if you're living from that space, everything else will come in time. And, that's just, so just hearing you say that, like, that's kind of one of the things that I just believe in. It's like, I'll just keep doing what I believe is right and just keep living it out, and just trust.
Yeah.
Have faith.
Yeah, totally. You tend to kind of shifting a little bit towards the CrossFit space because this is where I see it most, but like you definitely, along with being super nice, tend to really have an ability to like kind of dust things off your shoulder and move past the past. And, one of the ways that was most evident to me was this year at the games. I was filming with Rory and we were chatting to you after the sprint event, and we were asking you a couple questions about the line that you may or may not have stepped on or whatever it was. And this was moments after the event, like not even like I wouldn't even have expected you to have time to process it, especially with the crazy Hunger Games that the CrossFit Games were this year.
Seriously.
And we asked you like how you feel about blah, and it was very much just like, again, not in any kind of like fake way, but just like, yeah, well, like that might have happened. If it did, like, like I'll figure it out. I'll move past it. What happens. Like you were very like open to it, and we talked to a lot of other athletes where similar things happened that did not express the same kind of like, well, I made the choice, I did this, is whatever. Like you were very accepting of what happened. Like how does that, I think I know where it comes from, but how has that impacted you specifically in sport, and I guess in life too, with like, do you feel like you've ever been too nice, and like do you ever find yourself like accepting things when you maybe could fight them but you choose not to? Do you know what I'm kind of getting here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. There's another thing that I've kind of like a mantra that I have come to appreciate over the last few years, and that's like, going through sport is like living life in fast forward. And I've been in sports for a very long time now, and if you're willing to look and see the lessons that you're learning year to year, you can see a lot of overlap in things in life, and that they mesh together a lot. Like they're principles and things that you're learning that you essentially can either apply to your day to day. And being conditioned by sport, and I do think that going back to the aspect of just showing a lot of grace over my life, I think having the right mentors in your life is an important thing. It's an important aspect. And when you're young, that's hard to control. That's oftentimes just the sports team you get put on, or the teachers that you have class with and whatnot. But when you find one that feels good, that seems good, like lean into that. You know what I mean? Like that would be something that I would tell young kids. And then for all of us on like, as we grow into adults, honestly, kind of the same thing rings true. Like when you find a good mentor that just like you can tell that person has something good about them, like lean into that, right? And so having that mentorship, having those life lessons, being able to see what life has taught me over the long term, over all the things that I have experienced from an athletic career, it makes it a little easier to brush off some of those things that land on you hard, and one of the things that I always try to remind myself of, and we alluded to it earlier, but knowing the reason behind why you are doing what you're doing is really going to be a great guiding light to every circumstance and situation that you get into. So if it's stepping on the line, or I don't think that we talked about this at the games, but after the ruck run, I got into a little tussle right at the end.
Yeah, the famous picture. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, that's cool.
But we got into that little tussle, and then I was beat after that event. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
I was
destroyed.
Totally. Fell down when I crossed the finish line as I was throwing my foot out, rolled on the ground. I had lactic acid up to my eyeballs, so I wasn't thinking straight. Whatever, just stripped my bag off. I just needed to get my bag off me. And then as I stripped the bag off, I'm crawling over to the cooler, trying to get some water and get in front of the fan. Pretty simple, just trying to survive.
Yeah.
And in that process, I left my bag over by the finish line. I come to, everything settles, I start to feel better, I stand up, I go to pick up my bag, I go grab one of the bags. There's a pile of them at that point because a lot of athletes were doing the same thing. There's a pile of them at that point. Pick up the bag, I go over and start walking out to check out, because after that event you had to check in with a CrossFit judge, and they had to check to make sure that you had 3 sandbags in your bag. And when I went to go check out, got stopped for an interview, did the interview, started to walk out, didn't have the same bag. Somebody else grabbed my bag and I packed up another bag, and the bag that I picked up only had 2 sandbags in it. And it's kind of dang.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Mm-mm.
I remember specifically having 3 bags in there,
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, there is nothing that I can do but other than take ownership over the fact that I didn't keep track of my bag. Right? And going back to the knowing the reason behind why you're doing what you're doing, having a deep conviction of that, how I responded in that moment could have a lasting impact on the people around me, on the people who see me respond, and it can completely change the trajectory of somebody else's life depending on how I wear struggles, challenges, and triumphs. If I win with grace and lose with grace, it can have an amazing impact. And I actually just this morning, I just posted something on my Instagram, my Insta story, that kind of talked about that. It was a scripture that I had read this morning on the Bible app, and it was rejoice, brothers and sisters, for every trial and circumstance that you come into, for any trouble that you face, because it is going to build endurance in you, mm-hmm. and it is in turn better for the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. I just believe that, and I got in the space to be a light, mm-hmm. to be a force for good. So if I step on the line and they dock me for that and cut me because of it, okay, mm-hmm. nothing I can do about it now, but respond in a great way to help shape somebody else's life.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's very interesting because that conversation is something I'm really fascinated by too. And it's hard for you and I to talk to because we're both white males living in North America. You're good looking, I'm okay looking. There's where you're really athletic, I'm sort of athletic. There's what I mean. We have some privileges, and
totally.
And so it can be hard to talk to, and it can be very easy to counter it with other things. But in general, the thing I really try to relate to myself is the past is the past, and it couldn't have happened any other way because it didn't. You know what I mean? Anything that happens, the moment it happens, and you move past it, that's it. That is never going to change. That couldn't have happened any other way because it didn't. And once you can kind of understand what that means and really kind of work with that and realize the only thing you can control is your actions in that moment, it's really empowering. It kind of sounds but no, I want to fight to make right what was wrong, but it's you can't. There is nothing you can do to change what happened. The only thing you can do is act now to better what's going to happen down the road, you know, and we see it a lot because a lot of the conversation in society now is around mental health and anxiety and depression, and a lot of the time, a lot of those things are rooted in either the way you see yourself, the way you see the world, and mainly the way you see things that have happened to you in the past, specifically in childhood and stuff like that. And you know, like you touched on earlier with the divorce when you're young and all that kind of stuff, and it's so easy. Like, again, I'm not trying to make it that I came from any kind of hardship, because I've lived a very privileged existence, but you know, my parents got divorced when I was young, and that was hard and confusing. But like,
sure,
dwelling on things like that, whatever that past thing is like you not letting go of that. It's dragging you down. It's like not digesting food that's sitting heavy in your belly. Like it's gonna do you no good, and you're making the choice. It might not feel like it. You might feel like you're a victim of the circumstance, but the circumstance has already happened and it's already passed, and it is now your choice how you're going to move forward in life, and the kind of like image you want to put out and the kind of vibe you want to put out. And yeah, it's interesting to hear, because people might have that mentality and be like, that's great in life, but when you're competing for $275,000, maybe not. Like, maybe that's the time when you can be like, no, like you know what I mean? And like yeah, I'm gonna So it's really cool, and I think people should really, because there's going to be a lot of people realistically that listen to this and that are against the faith stuff, and that's fine. You know, there's a lot of people who are, but what people need to realize is like, aside from that, like what you're exuding and the things you're talking about doing in a competition setting with that much on the line, something you train your entire life for, and you're still willing to have that like move past it and continue to live my life in a way that's going to better me and other people, like that's big. You know, that's really big, and like I commend you for that, because that's not something a lot of people would be able to do, especially in a circumstance like the CrossFit Games. Like that is huge, and what people need to take away from that is, if you can do it in that situation, like when you're in line at Starbucks and your coffee is taking a little bit too long and the new barista is a little bit flustered, like you know what I mean? Like there are decisions you can make.
You can show a little bit of grace.
Exactly. There are decisions you can make. So no, that's cool, and that's a conversation that I think needs to be more prevalent and can help a lot of people, because a lot of people are struggling with that. I'm sure you get messages all the time. You know, people confused on how to move forward in life with things that might have happened. So
totally. No, and that's a big reason why I bring that parallel of going through sports is like living life and fast forward. It's not like the way that I handle that situation, you know, like we have to, especially I'm firsthand the one that learned it. Like I need to be able to take that into my day to day. So the line at Starbucks, like I need to learn how to also, like, I need to make sure that I am taking that lesson there when I get there, because, you know, it's like I'm going to face those when it comes into my real life. When, you know, I talk to people all the time, but there are a lot of things that disrupt your world. Yeah, it's like, you know what, like things are going to disrupt the path that you were hoping that your day was going to be.
Oh man, yeah.
You know what, like wear it with grace.
Yeah.
Like wear it well.
And again, you like people have to realize what that's coming from your mouth right now. You as the professional CrossFit Games athlete. CrossFit is one of the craziest pursuits where you have to have so much of your life dedicated to it, and there are so many micro decisions at your level that go into winning and losing. And yeah. I've gotten to know pretty much everyone at the top now in the CrossFit space, and everyone has a little bit different ways of approach. And there are a lot of people who are so obsessed with their perfect routine, their perfect sleep, their perfect food, their perfect, and all those things are great. Like shoot for it. But totally. A lot of them I know get shook when that stuff gets slightly off-put.
Yeah, and to me that's a competitive advantage. Is if you can learn how to, you know, and there's like a competitive advantage in life or a competitive advantage on the field. But if you can learn how to shake those off, because you know what, there's going to be inconveniences. Yeah. Welcome to planet Earth. Yeah. Right? It's like I tell myself that all the time, and that's not me preaching to whoever's listening. That's me preaching to myself.
Yeah.
But it's like I gotta remind myself that every day. Like, dude, you're gonna face inconveniences.
Yeah.
And if you can learn to just roll with those, take a deep breath, and move forward into the next best thing that you can do in that moment, like. You are going to operate better day to day and event to event.
Well, that's the thing too, is like people, like even on the athlete side, I'm always confused because I'm like, dude, like you get to the CrossFit Games and 2019 is the perfect example. Like you're stressed the entire time. You don't have the ability to warm up because you're finding out what the events are like 20 minutes before you start, and there's like no warm up equipment, and like you have no breaks in between to eat food, and like your world is literally flipped on its head, and like you're not gonna be durable. You're not gonna be resilient if you go into that life always sleeping in your complete, like, this is a bad example, but like, you know, when people have like they have to turn off their phones 3 hours before they go to sleep and have the complete blackout curtains, like just that kind of mentality, not just in the sleep but like in life, where like everything has to be so
perfect,
you know. And it's, you know, I find it also funny too, because like seeing people who are trying to get to your level, and they're emulating the behaviors that they think they see at the top, and there's these people who aren't, like, to be frank, like aren't anywhere close to making it to the CrossFit Games, but they're living these lives where they won't do this and they won't go here and they won't eat out and they won't have fun, and you can get hit by a bus tomorrow. Like, is this really the life you want to be living today? Like this.
And it's interesting that you talked about like the emulating what's actually happening at the top, right? Because, you know, it's like they're trying to emulate the lifestyle that is being preached, and there's a cute lifestyle that's being preached. Yep. But you know what? It's just a cute concept. It's not reality. Like, it's like, I'm sorry, but I have family, I have friends, I have a wife, I have responsibilities outside of dialing in the 5 controllables, right? Like, which are important things. Like,
for sure.
Again, strive for that. Because I do. Every single day I strive to dial those in the best I can, knowing that 90% of the time they'll be dialed in, and the other 10% they're going to be completely messed up. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But it's interesting because, like, I hear people like, I need to have this lined up in order to make it to the games. I need to have this lined up to clean up my life. I need to have this. And I don't know, maybe it's because we've talked about faith so much in this conversation, but it's so interesting because like the whole picture of the gospel is like this concept of like, you don't have to have your life cleaned up. Yeah. Like to have a relationship, to have faith, like you don't have to have your life cleaned up. And it's something that I've seen that's so interesting in sport as well, is you don't have to have the perfect lifestyle in order to make it. Yeah. When I started doing CrossFit with a barbell, 2 45-pound plates, 2 25-pound plates, a set of rings and straps in parks. Yeah. I drove my car to parks. I did bar muscle ups on swing sets because I couldn't afford to go to a gym. Yeah. I was in college. I was broke. Like, like I learned how to do double unders. You know, there's this up on campus at UW. There's this ROTC building, and outside of the ROTC building, they had like all these variations of pull-up bars and some tires. And me and Genesee would go do workouts there. Learned how to do chest to bar pull-ups, learned how to do bar muscle-ups on those bars. Like, you know, when people were saying Friday night, like, hey, we're going to go out to the bars, we'd be like, yeah, us too. Yeah. But we were talking about completely different
bars. Yeah. You know, so. No, it's funny, man. Like, you see, like, again, not to rag on anyone specific that might be listening, but like, you see people who are in that world and they're so obsessed with having the latest Nike lifters, and they're so obsessed with having the knee sleeves and the wrist wraps, and then you go watch a professional athlete, and like, you're a great example because like, I don't ever see you wearing gear ever. You know what I mean? Like, you're so bare bones, and like the people, and what that does is that transitions to like, when you do reach the top, if you reach the top or anywhere near it, like that is going to benefit you so much more, because you're not always going to be able to have your perfect scenarios like we just talked about in that competition world. And so it's like, it's funny to see the things people focus on because they think it's going to give them that advantage, or because it's what this person's using. But it's like, hey, listen, man, like that person's probably just being paid to promote that on social. Like, whether they actually, you know what I mean? Like, whatever it is. And yeah, it's interesting to see the things people really obsess over.
Yeah, no, it's good to hear. I'm glad you've seen that and you know, are willing to talk about it.
Yeah, well, and I mean, it's part of what I really love about the this and also the Day in Life series. Like, both of my main pieces of content right now are very focused around the real life, because we see so much of the highlights, and we always have. When media was dominated before by HQ, it was very much obviously the stuff that's sexy and around the games, and even now, like, a lot of the content is around that stuff. Whereas like, really what I've always been interested in, and what I'm most interested in is like, what is the actual life? Like when every time I go to do an athlete and I appreciate it very much. It's very kind and considerate, but I always get messages like you send me where it's like, hey, like, what should my day look like? Like, should I do this? Should I do this? Should I do this? And literally, the answer's always the same. I'm like, pretend I'm not there. Like, whatever you would do it, because I want people to see what the real life is. I don't want you to do you to do a 3 a day just because I'm coming. I don't want you to max out your, like, the amount of times I get there and the athletes are like, oh man, I wish I was maxing out my snatch today. I was like, I don't. Like, I'm very happy you're not, because like, I really want to see what's happening and then be able to build conversation around it. Like, I went and did Pat's taxes with him for like an hour the day of the video. Like, we sat in his kitchen and he did his taxes for an hour.
That's so great.
And like, you know, Pat and I are friends, so he kind of knew already, but like, it's great because like, that's the stuff that, like, you know, again, people get this picture, and it kind of goes back to the mental health thing a little bit, where social media and a lot of the content that's being put out is so focused around the highlights and the best and the you do this and I do this and this is how this works. But it's like, you guys especially are real people too and have real lives that are no different than anyone else's. And
it was so great because for those who are listening, we're gonna do a day on live video at some point in time, and Nate and I were messaging, and he was gonna come out the other day, and just some things didn't align, but I sent him a message and I said, like, hey man, like, ideally, like, what do you want the day to look like? Like, are you looking for anything specific? And the reason why I asked is because most people come with an agenda. Most people come to film at our place or just anything, and they have an agenda, and they want to show specific things. And it was almost me gauging you. I didn't want to change I wanted to just be me. Like, that's what I want to do, right? And so when it was so refreshing, when you responded, I'm like, dude, you just do exactly what you're going to do. Pretend like I'm not there. I'm going to ask you questions along the way every once in a while. I was like, heck yeah. People are about to see how boring my day-to-day is. Let's go.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, people understand, like, my day-to-day is not anything fun. Like, it's not that glamorous. It's a lot of physical, like, hard work that is grueling. And then it's a lot of recovery and answering messages on Instagram, and like, I edit my own YouTube videos still. Like,
we're gonna talk about that in a sec, but yeah.
So like there's a lot of, like, it's mundane. You would, if somebody spent a week with me and did exactly what I did, they would be bored out of their mind, and they wouldn't know what to do. And honestly, I love the boring moments. I love the boring moments. I don't want to spend my boring moments on Instagram. I want to spend them in my own head, where it's like, I don't have anything else to do but to just sit and think, and you know what? Inspiration happens there.
It's so funny. It's so funny, man. That's something I've learned this year so much, because like, this is all like crazy new to me. Like, January, Wadapalooza, this past year was the first time I had left Canada, and now I'm not joking, dude.
That's amazing.
And I've been on a plane every 2 weeks since, pretty much. Like, I've taken more flights in the last year than I have in my 23 before combined, like, all over Europe, all over the world. And like, it's super cool, you know, and you have those opportunities as well, and there's all these things that people see that. But like, again, something I'm interested in showing, because I've learned it about myself, is like, there's an appreciation when you have and don't get me wrong, it is a blessing. It is the most amazing thing to be able to live a life like this. But holy moly, do I appreciate right now the fact that I'm not going to take a flight for the next like 3 weeks, and I just get to be at home over Christmas and like do this series is amazing because I get to do what I love, but I don't have, like, I just get a bit of a break and a bit of normalcy, and like, people, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a real appreciation that comes
100%.
with, just being able to be here with you, your wife, me, my girlfriend, like, just a normal life, you know?
Yeah. And honestly, like, I think some of the things that are the most inspiring things in life are the people who live and wear that the best. You know, and it's like they're grateful for what they have. They do everything that they do with appreciation, you know, and it's like, that to me is extremely inspiring, and the people that I want to surround myself with, you know. So
well, and you must be coming up on it too, and I think all athletes are, but like, you know, that's kind of where I hit, is a point where I was like doing all these things, saying all these yeses, taking on all these opportunities, and then I started the YouTube channel, and that was obviously me having to jump and take a bunch of risks and opportunities, which is amazing. But like, what started to happen is this thing that I was loving and doing purely out of passion and whatever, like anything, turns into a job, which is great. It should be. But like, there's a moment too where you need to step back and be like, am I doing this for the right reasons? Am I really enjoying this? Am I being true to myself? And am I able then to put out truth in what I really care about? Or am I like getting into kind of a bad place, and should I maybe risk like losing a bit of traction on YouTube and like a bit of that revolution to make sure that I'm okay?
Totally.
You know what I mean? And like you guys with the sanctionals and all that, and you can go out every weekend and you can win a bunch of money by competing in all these comps and just run yourself into the ground. But it's like, where is that taking you? Yeah. Like exactly. I always, and it sounds so morbid, but like you could get hit by a bus tomorrow. Like any one of us, you know? And like if you're living your life so predicated on a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 4 years from now, don't get me wrong, like you're doing things that are going to get you to the place you want to be, but like if that's it, if you're hating your life and you're in the trenches and like every day is a struggle for you, you don't know how much time you're going to have left, you know? And like if you're not genuinely enjoying what you're doing, like why are you doing it?
Yeah, no, totally. You know, that's one of the things and principles that I live in my life, but everything is fleeting. It's like it's a dust. In my athletic career, my Instagram following, YouTube, like everything, it's dust in the wind. Here today, gone tomorrow. And it's like money is the same way. All of it, like I'm not gonna chase that stuff. As I'm gonna build deep, lasting relationships. I'm gonna enjoy the true splendors of this world, the things that really make you feel good. And that's good conversation with people, that's inspiring others, that's helping, that's serving, that's loving. Like that's the thing that just like that lights me up, man. It's like that stuff gets me excited.
Yeah, you know? Absolutely. Let's take that because, you know, with the platform and everything we've been talking about, there are certain opportunities that come. We've talked a lot about the responsibilities, the intentions, but there's certain opportunities, obviously, and I know you have already mentioned that, you know, your goal isn't to be a brand or an influencer, but like the reality is that like at the end of the day you have to make money for your family and to do what you want to do. And like, so what has that looked like for you? What opportunities have come, and what have you kind of been focusing on with the platform you've been given?
Yeah, so, you know, I tell people a lot, and I've said it in a lot of podcasts and a lot of interviews and whatnot, but I got into this space to build a platform specifically to reach and be a light to people, to be a voice of good and positivity and hope. And it was interesting because, you know, probably 5 years into competing as a CrossFit Games athlete and starting to get a following and whatnot, I kept saying that to people, like, oh yeah, like I'm in the sport to build a platform. And then all of a sudden I woke up and I was like, oh wow,
I have a platform.
I have a platform. What now? You know? It's and that's kind of when I kind of like sat back and analyzed things and looked at it. It's like, oh wow, like you've had a platform this whole time. Yeah. You know, and when you started your Instagram and there was 12 followers, you had a platform, man. And the way that you live your life is like it's a testament to that, and that's how you want to use your platform. So just because your platform is 200,000 times bigger than it was from day one doesn't mean that you change, right? And so that's really been a big mission of mine over the last couple of years, is just really it's like, man, like you just like work to be a good guy, be responsible where you need to be responsible, and that means building relationships with other brands, other people who want to support and get behind what you're doing. You know, I do realize that when you excel at certain things, people want to get behind that. But at the same time, I think that there's more that's going to come from saying no to things, because when you start to excel at something, people want to get behind you. And are you going to say yes to everyone, or are you only going to say yes to the people that you feel like you truly align with? Right. And are you going to learn how to say no to paychecks?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
And can you say no?
I hear you.
To paycheck? I hear you. To the promotion that you've been searching for, but just realized that's not really what I want in life. Can you say no to the promotion?
I hear you, man.
Can you know, it's like, and you know, I think one of the man, I was so grateful for it. It was like maybe it was my third year at the games. After my third year at the games, I was sponsored by Killcliff.
Okay.
Love those guys who, I think the ownerships and stuff has changed. And I haven't stayed in touch with anybody since, but the original group of guys that owned Killcliff and worked with them, they were a fun group of guys. They're just really nice. And I was sponsored by them, I think, for 2 years. And I had come to the realization, my contract had come up, that we just didn't line up. Their brand didn't speak to who I was as a man, and honestly, I as a man didn't align with their brand. And so I told the president at the time, I was like, "Hey man, like I would love to hop on a call. Contract is coming up. I just wanted to chat." I left it very vague like that. Most of the time when somebody is calling to talk about a contract, they're wanting to up the agreement and get more money, longer terms, and all this stuff, right? And I was like, "Hey, Chris, man, like, it's cool. Thank you so much for everything you have done for me. You have given me so much. Like, you believed in me when I hadn't made it to the games, that like this, that, and the other. Like, thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity you gave me. We'll just like best of luck." And it's like, that's not what life's about. It's like, I'm not going to change that. And so like you talk about like what kind of opportunities come your way. Like when you excel at something, opportunities come your way. Like when you do something really, really well, it's just why the world works that way. I don't know. It's like, but one of the things I do know is like, I'm going to be responsible in how I align with certain people and feel like I can be of value to them,
Yeah, and it's interesting because, again, it's still a new world for me, and that's why I love having these conversations with people who have been in it for a while, because not only do I learn something, but it's a cool kind of like juxtaposition from where you're at to where I'm at. But like that's something I'm kind of seeing and learning, is that like a lot of the time too, brands will come in expecting you to just be okay with the paycheck, and then to basically bend to their will to what they want and what their intentions and their goals are. And it's really funny when you kind of come back at that and you're like, hey, listen, like I'm not willing to accept that. Like I'm not willing to do that. And like like one of the ones I can kind of give an example of, just to give some context, and none of the brands I'm currently working with have done this, but brands that I have almost worked with have come to me with the day in the life stuff specifically and been like, okay, yeah, we'll sponsor this episode, we'll sponsor you, whatever, but we want the entire video and we want to repost it on our channel. And like that's just one of those things where I'm just like, absolutely not. Like I've said no to the biggest paycheck I've almost ever gotten, just solely because of that. Because like to me, like it waters it down. There's a whole bunch of reasons why, and like it's not a great example for like personal branding or whatever, but it's just like the idea that like it's not, a lot of people just look and see like, oh, these athletes are just getting these paychecks thrown at them, and but like there's a lot more of thought. If you want this to be sustainable, and if you know anything about the business, like there's a lot more that goes into it than just like, oh, this is a good amount of money, I'm going to take it. It's like, how does this align with the message I'm trying to put out? How does this work with the other brands I'm working with? How does this work with my future opportunities? Like, so I guess turning that into a question, like what are those intangibles you look for when you're working with brands and companies? Because I assume most of what you're doing right now is through your sponsorships and all that kind of stuff, right? That's the bulk of, I guess, your income, you'd say.
Yeah, I think that's actually that's a great topic, one that people are super interested in. I think is like how do athletes make their money?
Yeah, dude, that is the number one. I'll sit down on a plane and someone will be beside me, like, oh, where are you flying from? I'll be like, oh, here. They're like, oh, what are you doing? Work. What do you do? YouTuber. Without any hesitation. I never met them in my life. How do you make money? Where's your money come from? How much money do you make? I'm like, excuse me. Like, if I asked that to anyone with a 9-to-5, it would be like just the most cliche thing ever.
Totally. Yeah, no, seriously. It's like, somebody tells me their account, I have to Google, like, how much does an account make? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want to know that. I can't just ask you.
No.
That's completely incorrect.
Yeah.
No, it's super interesting. For a really long, I'm gonna jump back to when I first started getting into CrossFit, because I worked full time for 2.5 years. I've made it to 2 CrossFit games, worked full time, in that process 50, 40, 50, 60-hour work weeks.
Wow.
In 2014 and 2015, I brought my work computer to the games, answered emails and different things like that between events and at the end of the day. Like,
wow. What were you doing, just for context?
I was a loan originator.
A what?
Baby. Loan originator.
A loan originator. What is that?
Yeah, like a mortgage broker.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, sold mortgages, baby.
Oh, nice. Nice. There you go.
Yeah. Worked downtown Seattle selling mortgages.
Wow.
Worked with a great team, man. Like, I wouldn't change that experience. I learned so much about just the financial side of life, and just being responsible with finances and whatnot because of that industry, and like that. So that was really cool. Definitely super grateful for that experience. But there came a point in my career where, because I was putting so much focus on CrossFit, I wasn't putting very much focus on getting clients, and selling. And so then all of a sudden this balance starts to happen where selling mortgages 100% like commission, right? So like, okay, well, I'm not making very much money over here, and like CrossFit has the potential to take off, and I had to make that decision of like, where does my heart really lie? Like, where do I really want to go, man? And I think that one of the things that when we talk, and the more that we get to know each other, you'll just hear me always go back to it. Like, it's just not about, there's just certain things that life is not about, it's like, it's not about making money. It's about like the best experience of life, and having a deep quality impact on the lives around you. Right. So, that was really, how do I want to live, was the question I had to ask myself, and I just knew it wasn't in selling mortgages. Not that I wasn't in a very blessed situation. I was, and I was so grateful for the team that I worked with, but like, I knew where I felt called. And so, I left my job and had two sponsors who, one was basically just product. Yeah. And the other one was a very small paycheck. Oh, there's three. One was product, and then two were very small payments. And, we were making very, very small amount of money for a very, for a period of time. And at that point, in my career, it was, you had to place well, right, if you make money. Right. And people, and that's really where I wanted to loop everything back to, is people get so caught up in thinking that because people have Instagram followers and everything, like they're rolling in the dough, or they're sponsored out, they have all these sponsorships. But for a lot of people still, they have to perform if they want to get paid. It's like, there's still that toss up, right? And there's still a lot of people balancing part-time jobs, coaching positions, or whatever it is to pay the bills, hoping that they can perform well on an event and get a cash prize. Right. So people get so caught up in the making of money that they forget that, are you doing it because you enjoy it? Yeah. Are you doing it because you love it? Because there are a lot of people who are doing it and they're not making much money, but they just love doing it. Dude.
And that's it, man. That's like, you touched on it too with yourself. Like, when you first decided to leave the job and go full CrossFit, like, it sounds very similar to my position. Like, I was in a position where I had like a job, and I was doing, like, I was working with Butter Bros and Rory, and like doing these things that were like pretty fun. I had this good balance, but like, it was a real moment for me after the games where I just was like, okay, I love making content. That's what I want to do, but I don't love doing it for other people. Like, it feels like a bit of a creative hindrance for other people to tell me when my work is done. And anyway, long story, but like, it was a process of realizing that I was going to accept a slightly tougher financial otherwise existence in order to pursue what I wanted, with complete like confidence that I would be able to achieve things down the road. But like, I am not doing this for the money, like, not anywhere close, especially right now. You know what I mean? Like, every day is a grind, but
it'll come.
Totally. And like, but I guess kind of where I'm going with it is the same as you. Like, I just don't care. Like, I just don't care, man. I'm so happy right now. You know what I mean? Like, so genuinely loving every day. And like, every day I wake up and I have this like, sweet, like, I get to do this. I'm going to try to make this happen. Like, I'm going to try to make this video happen with this. Like, there's so much like passion, and like, I just really want people to realize that, like, it's so funny, but like money, I don't know if money can do that because I've never had a lot of money, but like this can, and you don't need money. You don't need anything to do this. You just need to just start doing something. You know what I mean?
Totally.
So it's cool. It's cool to hear you talking about that from the athlete side of things, because I think a lot of people don't realize what it actually takes to get to that level. And it's not just the glitz and the glam and the big contracts right off the bat. It's like, most of the time when you're starting, it's like pretty minimum. You gotta have that hustle and that grind to.
Yeah, and it's like, well, and like one of the other things is like, more money isn't really going to change your existence. It might change your environment. Like, cool, like good. Like you got more money and you changed your environment, and that's good. Like I'm happy for you. Like truly, I'm happy. And will I be happy when more money comes? Absolutely. I'll be extremely grateful for it. But one of the things that I don't ever want to be lost is more money doesn't change who you are. It just magnifies who you already are.
Yeah. Well, it's like, why are you going to be better? You're going to be better because you're already in a place where you're happy. You're already happy and you're already content with where you are. So of course, having more access and ability, which is what money is, it just gives you more opportunities to access certain things. If you're not already happy, it's just going to amplify that. And if you are happy, it's going to amplify that. You know, and that stupid question of like, would you rather cry in a Lambo or smile in a Prius? It's like, you know what I mean? Like, I'll take that Prius any day. Like,
Totally.
So
smile and Prius is a great combo.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you save the economy or save some fuel. You save the environment. Like, it's great. It's a great combination. So what on the business side of things then? So just kind of getting back to that a little bit. So we talked about the sponsorship stuff, but like obviously with the sponsorship stuff, there's opportunities like, who knows, maybe like a signature product or a thing that's going to need a bit more attention than just like posting on Instagram for it. And then there's probably, you know, like there's other things like programming and XYZ. There's all these different things that you as an athlete with platform can take. What if any of those things have you focused on or are you looking to develop?
Yeah, I'm in a really interesting place in my career because there's a lot of opportunities that do come in. You could do a lot of those things, and you know, I've just realized that as a man, I only have so much energy in a day. I only have so much time, and like there's certain areas that I really want to put focus on. Like my marriage is extremely important to me. My family is extremely important to me, and you know, friendships and relationships. I want to make sure that I have enough time and energy for those. I'm a one lane kind of man. Like, so right now my focus is on competing and being the best athlete that I can be. So I'm dumping a lot of energy into that bucket every single day. And so that doesn't leave a lot of time and energy for other things. But going back to your question, not diving down that too much, that means that I have to be choice about the things that I choose to put on my plate. And, you know, does it align with why, you know, with who I am? Does it pass the test of this is who Cole Sager is, right? Like, you know, for lack of a better way to put it. And I've kind of dabbled in a couple things here and there throughout my career. You know, we built an app back in 2018. I don't know if you know much about that.
No,
but I started a business called the Impact.
Oh, okay, cool. No.
Yeah. So started something back in 2018. It was this project called the Impact Project, and it's something that, you know, we still. I don't push it a lot, and that's mainly just because of the time and the energy, the buckets that I have time to put into. But I went through the process of building an app, and after launch, realized what we had really gotten ourselves into. Not from the irresponsibility of like, oh, what did we create? I can't handle this, but more so, we let some other people's decisions and influence push us into something that I really didn't want to do. And like, I think it was maybe 7 days after app launch, I was like, wow, this all was like really inspiring to start, but this was not where I wanted to go. And this is not what I wanted to do. Like, I'm cutting this.
Yeah.
And I cut it. I was like, boom, done. Like, we're not, because we're not going to live our everyday life this way. We're going to put ourselves and our focus this way, right? So like, it's being very choice and being really responsible. Like, what areas of your life do you really want to grow, and do you want to get better? And that's going to change season to season. I'm not always going to be in the athlete bucket, right? Mm-hmm. That's going to change at some point in time. I'm going to shift directions, and my career goal, like long-term career goal, is to be a motivational speaker.
Cool.
So like at some point in time, like I'm going to use my platform and transition into that to help speak life. I think that words are one of the most beautiful tools that human beings have. Like they can change people's thinkings, they can change people's worlds, and if you can learn how to use them correctly and effectively, like you can change lives. And so that's something that I find just beautiful and magnificent. And so like I'll transition to that eventually, but I don't want to put the cart before the horse.
Yeah, totally.
I don't, like.
No, it's cool, man. And to pick that apart a little bit, like the first point with the app and the launching it and then killing it, like there's this term that I've heard in the film world. I'm sure you've heard it before. It's kill your darlings. So it's like the idea that like when you're making a project, let's say a big video, and you have these different segments, and there's this one part that you put the majority of the budget into, and you really fell in love with, and it's like this is it, and then you put the project together, and you look at it as a whole, and you're like, wow, this doesn't make sense, this doesn't fit, this doesn't align, this doesn't XYZ, but it's the thing you put so much time and effort into. There are so many people who can't get rid of that and can't kill that, but it's the idea of like, for the betterment of the project, in this case the project being your life, you have to sometimes kill your darlings, kill the things that you may have, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's a learning experience, that's an opportunity for you to learn and grow and develop. But like so many people, man, get so hung up on like that one thing, and it's an ego thing a lot of the time too, because you're like, people are gonna think I failed, people are gonna think this, people are gonna, and it's your ego, and it's like being able to, and dude, that happens to me all the time. Like even just like, I'm not going to get into specifics, but like, especially with what I'm doing now, like there's so many things where I'm like, oh, this is going to be really cool, I'm going to start this, and I get really into it, and I make it really public, because my whole life is public, it's what I'm doing, and then I'm like, oh crap, that didn't really work, people didn't really like that, I didn't really like that doesn't really fit, but I made such a big deal of it. Well, too bad, like, check the ego, like, didn't work,
Totally. Yeah, you make an adjustment and you pivot and you change. It's 100%. And one of the things that like the way that I approach life on everything is starting small and scaling up. Yeah. Start where you are with what you have, because what you have is plenty. Like, you know what I mean? And I look at everything on an exponential curve. I don't look at things linear or like I'm jumping up on the. I start at zero. Yeah. And I work my way up. But you know what? And like those first bits of an exponential curve, it looks like you're not even moving.
Dude, I know.
And it feels like you're not even moving. And that's how my athletic career felt, and that's how my time on social media has felt, and that's how everything. So why do I expect to just jump up to 100 when I got to start at zero? Yeah. And it's just a little curve. But you know what? That's where persistence comes in. Yeah. That's where perseverance comes in.
Yeah, no, it's cool. It's cool to hear you say that, man, because like that's something I've been really working on, and that's been part of my journey recently. Is like, I'm the type of person where I get really excited really quick, and I get like I'm really like an all-in kind of guy, and so like I'll find something, I get so stoked, and I dive in, and like for me, like as much as I think I have the ability to kill the darlings and have the humility to do that, I have been very much 0 to 100 and like trying to like and I justify it sometimes with like, okay, I'm gonna set myself up for the future and make sure I have these things in place, but it's like not realizing that like like I can start smooth and I can start sustainable, and not everything I do has to be this next jump. And a lot of that comes from comparing yourself to other people, especially in my space, where everything is pretty much based on metrics that are visible to everyone, and so it's like constantly comparing and and like it's been cool because this is about month 4 of this like solo YouTube journey for me, and it's been like a really pretty much the last like week to 2 weeks, for the first time I've had this moment of like where I've like been like, I'm satisfied right now. Like, don't get me wrong, I want to keep going, I want to keep growing, but I don't feel like I'm chasing. I feel like now I'm growing, and I'm okay with a slow growth from here, because at the beginning there was a bubble, there was a burst, there was something I never saw coming. I never saw my videos getting as many views as they did, and my channel growing as fast as it did, and the opportunities coming. And so I was chase. But like, that's not sustainable, and that puts you to a point where you're going to make a lot of mistakes that could impact that slow growth that is really good enough, you know?
Totally.
And so that's something that I've really come to. And so it's cool to hear you say that, because that's a huge focus in mine now. It's like, even with this, like, I love interviewing. Like, I love conversations. I love this format. And, you know, like, the reality is, like, the only thing I can really make happen right now is this, a FaceTime call where I'm screen recording, I'm doing this. Like, don't get me wrong, I understand that I would love to have better quality audio. I would love to have you physically here with me to sit down, but like, that's not achievable right now. I can't do that. And so, like, being satisfied with creating what I can and realizing, number one, that like content is all that really matters. Like, people will get over quality. But like, being okay with that trajectory.
Yeah, and just starting with what you have. Like, it's just like, start there. Like, you just gotta start. That's all.
Yeah.
You know, and then be consistent. You know, and not only that, like, start, persevere, be consistent. Like, just show up every day and just try to be just make it happen, right? And that's actually, you know, learning to appreciate like just where you are in that moment, and like how important that is, and like, sometimes I just find myself like taking a step back and looking around and just feel like, wow, like, God, like, what? This is amazing. Yeah. Like, sure, like, there are people with more. Yeah. But wow. Yeah. Well, look what you took me from, a small town kid who, like, honestly, if you look at the route that I walked through, like, it was the path of mediocrity. And you know what? You know what's dangerous? Is mediocrity. Yeah. Because if you grow up in a comfortable place, it is really easy to stay there. Yeah. And you took me from the most, like, a gravity, like a pull to stay in a certain place, and you, like, the things that you've got, like, just, I don't know, have an appreciation for where you're at is, like, that's when you're really going to, I don't know, just, like, see your life increase, you know what I mean? And I don't even necessarily mean tangibly and materialistically, but, like, you yourself, like, your life to increase, your mind, your, like, I don't know, it's... And I can't talk to that point enough, and how eye-opening that is, and how really important that is, because, like, that was one of the things, like, when I was in that point of, like, chasing or whatever, like, I was getting these things that I wanted, and I do want, and I know are going to help me get to the place I was at, but mentally, I hadn't figured it out yet. Like, you never figure it out, but, you know, I hadn't come to a place of, like, peace and understanding yet. And I, like, there was part of me that, like, wasn't really happy and was trying to, like, figure it out, and it wasn't going to be solved by more views, more subs, more money. It was only me being able to sit down and really, like, understand what I want and accept where I'm at and be grateful for that before you can set yourself up to move forward. And, like, it's such a weird thing to understand, man, but, like, even, like, my, like, what I would consider, like, a bad video now, like, a bad video for views literally is 1,000 times more people watching it than when I made my first 200 vlogs on YouTube. I was getting like 10 views a video for 200 videos, and I was so happy. I didn't care. I was so excited to hit 100 subscribers. Like, that was just, like, I was slowly working towards that, going. And then I start this thing in September with 100 subscribers, and now look. And you know what I mean? And, like, but that's where it's like, then you get caught up with, like, trying to compare to the person ahead of you. But it's like, don't realize where you are and where you've come from, you know? And that for me was recently the moment where I was like, whoa, you know? Honestly, it's also really freeing too. Like, the ultimate freeing. So and then, like, your mind, like, shifts and it creates space for more creativity or more focus, or, like, I don't know, man, it is freeing. It's funny, man. It's funny. And the more you just kind of, relax into it, like, it's even the last couple of weeks, like, things have made more sense. You know, and I felt better. So anyway, let's I want to talk about a bit more about what you're doing outside of it. The first note I have here for what I wanted to move on to was YouTube. That's dope. Yeah. So we'll start there. You're doing YouTube. That's dope. Yeah. Tell me about that. Thanks, man. You know, that was really interesting, because it all kind of happened around the same time that several other, like, athletes got onto YouTube. You know, roughly right around the same time, and it was interesting because one of the things that I guess that I'm always looking at is I don't necessarily have like this rebelliousness to me, but I had a little bit of a countercultural like vibe to me. You know, it's like where I don't want to just be doing what everyone else is doing because that's what people are doing. Like it's like that's not the way to live life. Now, if it is right, and we've talked about that earlier, like I believe that there is a right and there's a wrong. If I believe that it is right, like then I'll do it. You know, so like, and that's where I felt called to with YouTube is like, hey, like there is a platform for you to reach people on a deeper level, for people to know you a little bit better, and for you to share your life in a different way that Instagram does not allow for. So why don't we start looking into that a little bit? And you know, and that's when my wife and I decided, both of us, like together, like, hey, like we're gonna like let's go this route. You know, for a couple of reasons, we get to share a little bit more behind ourselves as athlete, and you know, allow people to get to know us a little bit better. It also gives me the chance to speak on camera. You know, like I talked a little bit about me wanting to speak, and you know, publicly speak in the future. And so that gives me that opportunity as well. Like I get to hone in a skill, and you know, and then we can also have a positive impact in some people's lives potentially. You know, and if we're doing it the right way for the right reasons. You know, I've had several people reach out on you know, via email or whatever it is, asking to sponsor an episode. And it's something that I had to say no to because it doesn't fit. It doesn't align with why I got onto YouTube in the first place. You know, and will sometime maybe something line up and it's like, hey, that does fit who I am, and you know, like it'd be great to have you sponsor an episode. Like, I don't know, like you know, like I would. But what my focus is like, if it doesn't align with why I'm doing it, then no. Like it's just a hard no. Yeah,
totally.
And really, it's just like, you know, I'm on YouTube because I want to inspire, I want to motivate people, and really just I want to be great encouragement for people. You know, and it's just like, you know, share my journey, share my struggles, and share the glory as well. You know, and where the glory really belongs. So
no, it's neat, man. It's cool to see because you're right. Like it was kind of, there was like this inflection point when all of a sudden it felt like CrossFit athletes kind of saw the opportunity with YouTube, and it aligned pretty well with obviously the dissolution of HQ Media, which was your predominant platform outside of Instagram, and that was gone now. And so there was, you know, a period, and there still is, of trying to figure out what that new media looks like. And I think it's started to establish, but like one of the things that I think that showed to athletes, and it's funny because like before that I had always kind of wondered, like I wonder why no CrossFitters do this, is that you can create your own content and you can be the director and the narrator of what you want to put out. And the thing that it allows you to do is kind of two things. It allows you to get long form content out there, which is, I don't want to say more impactful than the stuff you see on Instagram, but just through the nature of it being more open and honest and more of a dialogue, you're able to share more with that audience, and it's very interesting to see now people taking advantage of that and taking it the way they want to go. There's lots of different things you can do with it, but it definitely seems like for you it's going to be a great opportunity to start to build that connection going forward.
Well, it's really interesting because you bring up you know, you kind of brought up a topic without maybe knowing it, but the investment of people's resources is something that I found really attractive about YouTube. And you know, we talked about building brands and a business and all that stuff, and like at some point in time, like there will be a point where like maybe I have a product or I have a service or I have something that maybe I charge for or something. Ideally, like I want to serve to the best of my ability and to be able to reach people, as many people as possible. Like free is something that reaches, you know, really widespread.
Yeah, man.
But I also talked about the depth that I want to go with people. And I also realized that in order to reach depth with a lot of people, you have to get them to buy in some fashion. They have to be investing into it in some way. And the difference between YouTube and Instagram is that YouTube requires an investment of time. And they have to literally, that you invest, you know, 10 minutes per video or more to get to absorb this content rather than 3 or 2.5 seconds, whatever the average Instagram scroll is, right? You know what I mean? So that was something that was very intriguing to me and very attractive to me about YouTube, is like, if people are going to go there, they're going to go there for more depth, not for surface level.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
And it's why it's effective when people like charge for a service or something like that, because you're getting somebody to invest their resources, something that they worked for. They're investing something for that. And so it means a little bit more. There's a little bit depth. It gets off of the surface and it goes below that, you know, and that's one of the things I hate surface level things. Yeah. I like the worst thing in the world is showing up somewhere and having a conversation with somebody and just they want to just keep it on the surface. Hey, how you doing? Good. Yeah. How you doing? Good. What's going on? You're like, oh, nothing much. It's like, man, like, talk to me. Yeah. What's going on in your life? How's your heart? You know what I mean? Dude. It's like, what's changing? What are your goals like? I want to go deep. I want to get below the surface, and that's something that I kind of saw with YouTube, and that's where I want to go with different avenues. Like, how can I go deeper with people? Yeah. So.
Yeah, man, you're preaching to the choir. Like, obviously, that's been my goal from day one with all the content I'm creating, is like seeing that even in the CrossFit space currently, there's not. And not saying it's wrong, not saying it's right, not saying there needs to be everything, and you know, short form content at face value may be more entertaining than what I'm producing in a way. Totally. Like, and that's maybe why certain people whatever. But like for me and what I care about is being able to go deep and go the extra mile. And it's funny because like again, like it's not, the videos do pretty well, but it's like it's not compared to if you look at an athlete's social media following versus the views in the video, it's still like not really even there. But it's like the amount of feedback I get from athletes being like, holy crap, like so many people are asking me about this video, so many, just because it's like people have never seen that before. People have never been able to get that invested with someone. And when you talk about investing 10 minutes into a video, these are like an hour and a half to 2 hours. Like this is going to be like probably about 2 hours of us talking, you know what I mean? So like when people watch my videos, it's like they are really investing into you. And like, and you know, and that's part of the reason why I think it's cool too when I do like athletes that might not have as big a name too, because it's like then people can get to know them and it gives them a platform. But anyway, point being, it's like, yeah, the YouTube thing, it will give you that opportunity to create an audience that is gonna transition with you in life. They're gonna follow you past CrossFit. That's the thing I kind of talk to athletes about all the time, is like you need to be creating an audience that is going to follow you past the CrossFit Games. You know, unless you're like maybe like Pat, where like Pat Vellner, for example, like he wants to go and be a chiropractor, and he studied for that and he's gone to school for that, and I don't think he really cares that much about having an audience follow him. That's fine. But a lot of people do, and a lot of people are counting on what they're building to carry them for time and be able to develop off of it. And like if that's you and you have a goal that requires an audience, like you have to start creating content and building a core group of people that will follow you because of you, that like you. They're not just clicking to see the 285 snatch PR. They're gonna, whatever you put out, they're gonna click on.
They care about your life.
Exactly.
They care.
Exactly.
And that requires investment from me. You know, it's like I have to invest of myself, because honestly, that's a relationship, and that's what it just requires is an investment from both people. They're clicking on your content. Well, you know what? You got to bring yourself to it then.
Well, it's interesting to see too, even like, you know, you, even on Instagram, I say you do a good job of it, because you post a lot, obviously about your faith journey, but like also about your relationship, like with your wife. Like you post a lot about that, which is amazing, because what that does is like it creates a narrative to who you are. And I would say, honestly, at face value, a lot of your content is more centered around Cole the human than Cole the athlete, which I think is so brilliant, because it's going to set you up so well for after CrossFit. And as well, it's going to give you that opportunity to go deep, because people are like, if you start talking to them from I have a big snatch and I won this sanctional, and then you start talking to them about like how they can change their life and impact people, they're going to be like, who are you? You don't know what you're talking about. You're a meathead. What? You know?
Yeah, exactly.
But like when they see on a daily basis you going deep and you talking, and I'm sure this is not subconscious, I'm sure you know what you're doing, but like to give people really to the archetype to how you're doing this, it's like you're allowing people to slowly make that connection with you and understand you as a human, because you know then you're going to have the ability to do what you want to do with them. And It's cool. It's cool to see.
Well, it's interesting because you touched base on the comparison factor a little bit earlier in our conversation, and and you just referred to it not being it's a conscious effort on my behalf, to make sure that I'm putting out what I think is really of value, which is and what I want to be portraying. And it's tough because I do, just like anyone else, have to fight off the comparison factor.
Yeah.
Like I know what gets a lot of likes.
Yeah.
I know the 285 snatch PR gets a ton of views, and it builds and this, that, and the other. Like, I'm not stupid. I've watched it long enough on Instagram. Like, I know that if you take your shirt off more, you get likes.
That's so funny. Yeah, no, it probably works for you. I don't think it would work too well for me, but it might work. Yeah.
Like there are certain things, but it's like that's not the point. That's not the point. And it's finding the things that express what's on my heart, that get the views, that get the likes, that those are the things that I want to put out. It's not, and maybe even honestly being willing to put the things that I feel like is really heavy on my heart, that is going to get likes. Yeah. That is like,
that might honestly do the opposite. That might detract people.
Totally. And that's one of the things that I am okay with somebody looking at my Instagram account and saying like, wow, this is not what I want to follow. Okay.
Good.
Like unfollow it. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
I have plenty, and there's probably a place for you to go follow. You go do that. That's okay.
Yep.
Like, I'm good with that. And you know what? If you want to come back, I'm here, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I will be here to love you and people and whatever, and I will be here no matter what. I'm not changing. I'm doing my thing. So
how much of that, because you touched on understanding what is going to get the likes and what's going to get the follows, where is that line then between your goal is to influence, inspire, and grow, and in order to do that you have to be reaching people, and you have to be connecting to people, and you have to be building an audience, because there might be people out there who you haven't yet connected with who you could literally change their life, right? And you, I'm sure you know that, and in order to get to those people, where does that okay, well, I need to, there's a rule, not rule, but like guideline in content. It's like the 2-for-1, where it's like 2 for them, 1 for you, 2 for them, 1 for you, 2 for them, 1 for you. And it's not necessarily something I live by or whatever, but it's just kind of a general thesis where when you're trying to build an audience, you do what they want, and then something that you want, and then 2 for them, and then 1 for you, and 2. Where does that line come from you between like knowing what will grow your audience, which will hopefully turn into what you want them to be, which is people you can inspire and communicate with, versus only just putting out the content really close to your heart?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I don't, like, we talked about building, the building a brand type thing, and that almost falls under that a little bit for me. Is like, at that point, then now you're trying to build a business, and now you're trying to build a brand. This being, of course, me talking to myself. Of course, like, when I get in that frame of mind. For like, especially like for you, like if you like, that is something that needs to happen. Like, I totally get that. Like, and I told you before, like, there are systems that you should put in place out of responsibility. Yep. There are systems that you should put in place. Let's just talk about like a retirement fund.
Sure.
Something that all of us should be, ideally looking to pour into, saving money, having cash on hand. Like, there's just things to be responsible with, right? So there's systems to put in place. Sure. But going back, when I look at it myself, when I start to look at things too much from a 2 for them, 1 for me, or what is going to get the likes and what are going to get the views, have I done too many serious posts versus do I need to put out a funny post? Then it starts to feel like, man, like you're searching too much you're putting too much energy in the wrong bucket. Right. And we talked about that before, right? Just to go back to that, where you're putting too much energy into the wrong bucket. And I think one of the things that I have found interesting is, in building a platform, people want to see people overcoming challenges. That is something that is really inspiring to people, because you know what, like, life is hard. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of challenges. There's a lot of trials. It doesn't matter how good your faith is, if you have faith or you don't. Like, we're all going to face struggle, right? Like, it's just, and it doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter like how physically prowess you are. Like, so people like to see people overcome challenge, and then they also like to see people wear it well and wear it with grace. And so that has kind of been the avenue in which I've always looked at wanting to build my platform, is challenge myself with what I think is a very challenging venture and pour all of myself out into it, and then on social media share that journey with people, and then just be real and authentic with them. Like, this is what I'm struggling with, or this is how hard it is, or this is what I have to work through, and just be me, right? And so building that platform, that's been CrossFit, chasing, not just getting to the CrossFit Games, winning the CrossFit Games. That is, like, I'll be honest, like, a lot of athletes are afraid to say that these days, like, because Matt has been so dominant, and it's like this thing that has become so, like, unlikely to happen. Like, well, no, like, I set out to win the CrossFit Games. Like, if we want to talk about, let's talk about that, because that's what I'm working towards. I'm not just doing this to just get to the CrossFit Games. I am shooting for the moon. Like, I am putting myself out there. And so whatever it is, like, that's where I'm going to push myself. I'm going to venture into something that is so challenging, it's of interest for people to watch the pursuit of. And so that's very much where the growth in the platform and whatnot comes from. That's where I want it to come from, is people being interested in the pursuit of the challenge, of the growth, of the venture, knowing that interest is usually coming out of a want or desire for inspiration, for motivation or encouragement, because, like, we all on some level really wish that we could get on Instagram and leave feeling encouraged. You know what I mean? Not torn down. And I just want to be that account where people can go and be like, oh, I feel more encouraged for the challenge I'm gonna face now. And that's what I want everyone to, who comes across my channels or whatever, I want them to feel that.
No, it's cool, because, like, I mean, the conversation around social media so much, like, recently, and things like Instagram taking away like counts and all that kind of stuff, like, there's such a mental health component to it, and such like an ability in social to do one of two things, and that's either to build brand at all costs and not understand the impact you're having and the responsibilities realistically that you may or may not accept, but that you have as someone with influence, versus, putting that as a priority in your life to share a message that's going to do more than just, like, get you likes, and it's cool, and definitely commend you for, like, realizing that, because I think a lot of the time too, CrossFitters, athletes specifically, or athletes in general, sorry, not just CrossFitters and specifically, realize that to some extent the moment in the spotlight could be fleeting. You know what I mean? Like, athletic careers are relatively short and whatever, and there could definitely be the temptation to cash in at all costs, and to push the envelope, to do whatever, and you see it time and time again, especially online, the people who burn the biggest are the people who usually burn out the fastest, and burnout doesn't just mean like what we traditionally associate with burnout, but it can be like things like Logan Paul was one of the biggest vloggers ever, and then he goes to Japan and does a suicide forest thing, and then all of a sudden his world comes crashing down. Like, there's that constant catch up and chase of something without understanding what you're doing and the responsibility you have and kind of what you're creating is it's a tough thing to learn, I think, and it's definitely a tough pill to swallow, to understand that you're going to be saying no to opportunities, and you're going to be doing things that are true to yourself. So
yeah, totally. And you've touched on it a couple times, and I'll say it again. Competing could be here today and gone tomorrow. And ultimately, if it was, I will look around and still be grateful for everything I have, and just be like, wow, that was amazing. That was fun. I'll move forward in the next venture, whatever that is. But but it's like, it's good. It's been good, and it is good, and it'll continue to be good no matter what direction it goes. And it's like, I'm blessed either way.
If you in closing, if there was, and I don't want to get too esoteric here, but if there was, I want to kind of give you an opportunity. If this is a question I've heard on, it's not me coming up with some amazing question, but I've heard it before, but it's something I think you could offer insight to is if the slate was wiped clean and Cole Sager was for all intents and purposes, everything you did in the past was gone and forgotten about, what would you want one thing to be remembered by? What is the one thing that you would like people to like know you for and as? If all of your athletic accomplishments and all that kind of stuff was wiped away, what is kind of the one thing that you would want people to remember if you could pick one thing?
Well, I really want to be I want people to look back on anything that I've done and say that is a man who gave all of himself, who gave himself to everything he did fully, who loved extremely hard. And I'm not talking about just love my wife. I'm talking about loving where I'm at, being appreciative of everything I had, and loving the people around me even when they're inconvenient. You know what I mean? When it's an inconvenient and it's hard, and loving the struggle and knowing that it's only producing something good. It's that was a man who gave everything. He gave it all, and that's really what I really want to be seen as, because I think that it's going to produce a good life. I really do. And if it produces a good life and people can see that's a man who gave it all and it produced that, then that's how I want to live.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Cool.
So, just ultimately people asking the question hey, what's different about him?
Yeah, totally. That's awesome. Well, man, thank you. Thanks for taking the time, man. Thanks for chatting with me. That was a lot of fun.
Honestly, this was very cool, and I hope that people can really appreciate what you're doing here, because this is unique.
Thanks, man.
This is very unique for people to ask this kind of question, or for you to ask these kind of questions and go in this kind of depth. It doesn't happen nearly enough. So thank you so much for that opportunity.
No problem, man. I appreciate it. Where can people find you this year? What are you, just in Cliff Notes, where can they look to see you, support you in the season?
Yeah. People can find me at Cole Sager 35 on Instagram. They can find me Cole Sager on YouTube, and then ColeSager.com. I have a website which is a little bit more about me and whatnot. So
where can they support you sanctional wise? Were you competing this year? Do you have a plan for that yet, or still?
Be on the lookout. Planning on. I have already accepted invites to Wadapalooza and to the Rogue Invitational.
Nice.
And I have sights on the West Coast Classic just because I am a West Coast athlete, but we'll see. Just depending on what's best for the season.
Come out and hang out in Vancouver, man. Can West Games. We got a sanctional right here.
I was so stoked when they brought that, man. Pretty excited about that.
It's a beautiful place up here. I know it's not far from you, and it's kind of similar, but Vancouver's nice, man.
Well, actually, where I grew up was just 45 minutes south of the border.
Oh, really? So you grew up really close to Seattle? Oh, dope.
Do you know where Bellingham is?
No. My girlfriend does. She just said yeah. I don't.
So I was born and raised in Skagit Valley, Burlington,
cool.
Washington. Yeah.
Nice.
Less than an hour from the border, so I've been up there plenty.
Okay,
it's
great.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's nice, man. Beautiful. It's nice. Cool. All right, man. Well, we'll leave it there.
Great. Thank you, Nate. Thanks so much, man. Appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, no problem. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to wrap it up for the second episode of the Inside the Life of series with none other than Mr. Cole Sager himself. Thank you, Cole, for sitting down with me today. That was a really cool conversation. There was a lot of tidbits of experience in there that Cole was able to speak on, and a lot of things I personally am going to take away from this, and I hope you guys can too. If you guys are enjoying this series, if you guys love listening to it, watching it, whatever, please let me know, comment, but most importantly, subscribe. Hit that subscribe button if you're watching this on YouTube. Even if you're not watching on YouTube, go to my YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button. I can't tell you how important it is that you guys subscribe to the channel so I can keep making this content for y'all. I got lots more coming at you. December is going to be a cool month with a couple different content opportunities coming, so I look forward to sharing that. Thank you again so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.